One such is Mahabharata, that this human being is a combination or a complex of two items, Jada and Chaitanya. We are a combination of both. Something Jada is within us, something Chaitanya also is within us. We call it Chit Jada Granthi. What a beautiful expression. Chit Jada Granthi is a human being. Every living being is a Chit Jada Granthi. Chit is consciousness, Jada is inertness, matter. This human being is a mixture of Chit and Jada. Now we are asked to discriminate what is truly Chit within us, what is truly Jada within us, and realize your nature as pure Chit. That is all of religion. That is all of spiritual development. But it is such a tremendous job. It will take ages for us to realize, not only one life, many lives. Our teachers knew, because our minds are not prepared for this kind of adventure. So Chit Jada Granthi is a beautiful expression, and I have quoted several times modern neurology, which says we are material, but we are also something other than material. We have to posit something non-material to explain human behavior, and that's called the mind. We are not mere brain, but also the mind. Both are there. Brain is matter. Mind is not matter. Mind is consciousness. So we are a mixture of brain and consciousness, says some neurologists today. Others who are really materialistic say no, it is only matter, nothing but matter. Consciousness is only a little exuding of matter. That's all. There is no reality for it. Now that discussion is going on. More and more people among the scientists are coming to the view that purely on material basis you can't explain human behavior, human attitudes, human achievements. You need these two aspects, Jada as well as Chaitanya. So in this we studied Vaishwanara, the waking ego. That goes away when you go to dream. Taijasa, he is there. And both go away along with the world which they saw in the deep sleep. Neither the subject nor the object are found in deep sleep. Absolute quiet, silence, shanti. Absolute shanti is what you get in the deep sleep. What is there in the deep sleep? We have to realize it for ourselves. That is coming in the coming books, in this fourth book itself. Just a little studying here, the prajna, the self which is quiescent in deep sleep is prajna. There is Taijasa there. Of the sage who has just first attained the Vaishwanara, then the Taijasa, or the self identified with the mind. After that, the self identified with the vital force, prana. That is in prajna, prana alone is, nothing else is there. Prajna, the east, etc., etc. Does the sage identify himself by stages with vital force that comprises everything? All energy in the world is called vital force. There. Then withdrawing this, all comprising vital force into the inner self, he next attains the natural state of the witness, of the Sakshi. Just a Sakshi, not at all active, just watching, seeing. That is the nature of the witness. Sakshi is a beautiful word. It's a word for witness in the court. It's also called Sakshi. Yes, I have seen, so I am going to tell you. Of course, today it's all false Sakshi. Very few real Sakshis are there. But this Sakshi is true, real. There. All improvising, said. Natural state of the witness, the transcendent self, that is described as not this, not this, not this. The Taijasa you can specify. So also Vaishwanara. Prajna you can do it through negative way. But the Atman, no positive language is possible. So not this, not this, not this. This self, which the sage thus attains, is that which has been described as not this. This passage up to never suffers injury has already been explained earlier. You have attained that which is free from fear due to birth, death, etc. O Janaka, said Yajnavalkya. This is in fulfillment of the statement, then I will tell you where you will go. Yajnavalkya had said, I am telling you, you have come to this state of the infinite Brahman, the pure self, the pure Sakshi. Yeah. Ravi Yajnavalkya said, Emperor Janaka, may that which is free from fear be yours too, for you have made that which is free from fear, the Brahman, known or accessible to us by the removal of the veil of ignorance created by the limiting adjuncts of body-mind complex. These only limit the unlimited. That is all. How little we see. A small bulb will give you a small light, little light. A big bulb gives you so much light. The light itself has got a particular voltage. Here it is reduced. The limiting adjuncts makes all the difference. So also the Atman shines in one a little, another a little more, a little more. In a pure sage, it shines fully because his body and mind have become completely pure. It can express the Atman fully. This is the language used in the Chandogya Upanishad, where the whole of spiritual life is condensed in 3 sentences. That is the 7th chapter. The education of Narada by sage Sanat Kumara. Very wonderful chapter. It says, Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi. This body and mind are the product of Ahara. Ahara means physical food and mental food. Whatever comes from outside into the system will determine the nature of the system. When they are pure, this is pure. When they are impure, this is impure. First sentence. Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi. Sattva is mind. Mind becomes pure when only pure ahara or impressions come into the mind. Then what happens? Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smriti. When the mind becomes pure, the memory of our divine nature becomes constant. That mind alone can understand its truth, that I am the Atman, I am infinite, I am pure. That knowledge can come naturally, spontaneously, when the mind becomes pure. So second line said, this purity of mind, Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smriti. Then what happens? That is wonderful. Smritilambhe. When this memory of our divine nature comes, Sarva Granthinam Vipramoksha. All Granthis, knots and complexes become completely destroyed. These are the 3 sentences. How wonderful they are, even for normal human life, normal development of human character. This teaching, Sarva Granthinam Vipramoktaha. So, the book says later on, Tasmai Mridita Kashayaya Tamasas Param Darsheti Bhagavan Sanat Kumara. Bhagavan Sanat Kumara is showing Narada through all this training the other side of darkness, the other side of ignorance, the side of light, the side of illumination. Tamasas Param, beyond darkness, that state of illumination. Darsheti is showing him. That is Narada's attainment through the help of Sanat Kumara. The whole chapter is a beautiful chapter on spiritual education. Narada was well learned, but full of sorrow, full of tension. Knowledge was there, but tension was there. Why? My knowledge of my Atman, I don't know. I have knowledge of the Anatman, not knowledge of the Atman. I have heard from great teachers like you, that only a knowledge of the Atman can destroy all fear. Other knowledge can destroy only partial fear. It is the language of Narada. Therefore, Sattvam Bhagavan Shokasya Param Tarayatu. Take me across this ocean of sorrow, delusion, tension. That is the language of Narada to the teacher. And the teacher educates Narada step by step, from gross to subtle, subtle to still more subtle, ultimately takes Narada to the highest Brahman, the state of fearlessness, infinite and non-dual. Narada becomes free. That is how the book chapter ends with that statement. So here we have the empire of Videha is yours. Enjoy it as you will. I myself too am at your service. Please use me as well as the empire just as you like. Narada, the Janaka is surrendering himself at the feet of Yajnavalkya, for he has got something which no empire can give. fearlessness. Generally, emperors are full of fear. They may be killed today or tomorrow, full of fear. Napoleon, fearless, but he had a lot of fear. So, this understanding has come. There is a state in which you can be fearless. When you know you are the immortal Atman, no instrument can kill you, that knowledge. So, Napoleon said, when he was in the fort of St. Helena, as a prisoner of the British, 6 years he had to live. Life of suffering, life of tension, from that high state to the low state, constantly troubled by the governor, British governor. He had a very bad time. Then one day he said, there are only two powers in this world, the spirit and the sword. The spirit has always vanquished the sword. This is his statement. The spirit has always vanquished the sword. Then he gives an example. Julius Caesar, Charlemagne, myself, Alexander. We all built great empires. On what power? The power of the sword. All those empires have vanished. But Jesus alone built an empire on the spirit. And millions are there today to die for him. That is Napoleon's confession. The spirit and the sword. Sword is nothing compared to the spirit. Now you can see a person who is an emperor. He understood this truth. What is this all empire? Today is, tomorrow is not. Where shall I go? Yes, you are there. Here itself you will be free. In this very body, ihaiva, not going to some heaven. Vedanta doesn't send you to heaven to become free. Here itself, you are free. You are free. And you will realize that you are free. So Vivekananda used to say, every one of us, utter this word, freedom. I am free. I am free. Azad, azad. There is a truth about you. Only you must learn what it means. That we have not learned in India. We are free means free to throw stones at any running train. That is all we know of freedom. That is utter slavery that we forget. Real freedom is not of that nature. Freedom is discipline. Self-discipline is the real nature of freedom. Then you realize the true nature of the self. And so, whole nation must learn to be free. Political freedom has come, but human freedom has yet to come. We are more in slavery now than we were when we were just politically free. These teachings are meant for that. How to make people of India free in the true sense of the term. Not because they can run their own government as they like, but as a spirit, they are free, they are free. There is the importance of this section. The next chapter, section 3, you will find many inspiring ideas coming in the teaching of Vedanta, especially, as I said, the study of the 3 states. And through the states, we realize the Atman, which is there in all the states. But we cannot see it in the waking state because of too much of other things pushing me around. In dream also the same. We must realize the Atman in a very quiet condition. Sleep is a beautiful idea, deep sleep. And without a study of deep sleep, you can't realize the truth of the Atman. It is the key to understanding the nature of the Atman, says Vedanta. Today psychology has not studied deep sleep except for electronic purposes, for studying various waves, etc. But deep sleep is philosophically very significant, where subject and object vanish. What exactly is that state? That is being expounded here in this coming section. We shall take it up next Sunday when we meet here. Today we enter into a very inspiring section of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that is section 3 of book 4. The Yajnavalkya Janaka discussion continues in a different context. So the story is told in the beginning. Immediately we are introduced to a very great subject which is agitating the minds of thinkers in the West today. Whether in this human system is there anything other than material entities and particles? Is it purely matter that you find within the system? Or is there a principle of intelligence? Materialism says there is only matter. Matter in its various transformations. But, as I often refer to neurologists studying the subject, some of them have started telling mere matter cannot explain all these phenomena connected with life and thought. Cannot be mere matter. There is a mind beyond matter. There is a mind beyond the brain. Brain is matter. Nervous system is matter. We can't explain all human behavior on the basis of mere matter, on the basis of chemistry and physics. A few scientists are taking this new view, and more scientists are following them. Within this post-war period, a large number of scientists have begun to accept that this physical body and the material of which it is made cannot explain itself. We have to posit a second factor of intelligence, both in the cosmos outside, the human system below. Now, this very discussion took place in India about 4,000 years ago. This section, book chapter 3 of book 4, deals with that particular discussion. Shankaracharya's extensive commentary deals with several aspects of this question. Objections, answers, everything that we now put forward, you found put forward by Shankara's commentary at that time. So I just begin the text, but before that, Shankara's introduction to this third chapter, a few sentences from there. The connection of the present section with the preceding section is as follows. The individual self, I, you, when you say I, that's called individual self. That is Brahman, that is immediate and direct. This self is that Brahman which is immediate and direct. Yat sakshat aparokshat Brahma. Ya Atma Sarvantaraha, who is there in every one of us. There is this self. That the theme of these several sections in this second and third book of this and fourth book of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is identical with the Supreme Self. This little self in me, self in you, is identical with the Supreme Self. Atman, one with Paramatman. We developed these new concepts and terminologies. Atman is something limited to my body. Paramatman is unlimited. And this is one with that. It looks limited, really it is unlimited. That is the teaching. We know from this from the Shruti text. Already many passages have come dealing with this subject. There is no other witness than this. There is no other seer than this. Such passages we have studied already. That it exists and is different from the body. This Atman, this Jiva, the intelligent principle, exists and it is different from the body. Yeah. This self has entered into this body, and therefore he says we cannot understand how these bodies function without reference to the self. Normal understanding, we don't think of the self at all. Everything is going on quite all right. But when you begin to question, then things come up. New truths come up. Questioning is what makes for knowledge of truth. If you don't question, there is no knowledge of truth. Earth is flat. You don't question. My experience says it is flat. But when you begin to question, it is not true. It is a globe. Like that, this body functions on its own. That's what we normally understand. But when you begin to question it, we understand a different truth. That it exists and is different from the body has been known in the dialogue between Balaki and Ajatashatru in the second book. We finished it earlier. Now, section dealing with the question of Ushasta, Chakrayana, that is, that which breathes through the prana. It has been known in a general way from the introduction of the functions of breathing. We are breathing. What is the power of breathing? What is the power behind it? We discovered prana behind all ways of living, all breathing, etc. That subject came earlier. It has been more particularly known as being by nature constant intelligence. The self in a human being, if it is of the nature of constant intelligence, there is no break in the intelligence. Absolutely uniform, constant intelligence, that's the nature of the self. The word jiva is used to express that idea of intelligence. Actually, jiva is what lives. Jiv means to live. In fact, the word genetic, gene, all this have come from the word jiv in Sanskrit, to live and to breathe and to be intelligent. All that is jiva. It suffers owing to limitations of the body and the sensory system. It considers itself as small, limited, and suffers transmigration, birth after death, birth after birth. That we have seen earlier. Then only when knowledge comes, I am the infinite Atman, no more of birth, no more of death. That way. It is known as indefinable. It will be described only as not this, not this. The self cannot be described. That is the Upanishad statement. So call it not this, not this. Neti neti. It is immutable. It is the inner ruler. Antaryami. The one who regulates everything from within. Antaryami. To be known only through the Upanishads. Aupanishadam Purusham. This subject is never known in any other literature. Only in the Upanishads. That behind this body-mind complex is a self of the nature of pure intelligence. And that self is one with all. One with every self in the world. There is only one self in all. That is all the teaching of the Upanishads alone. Aupanishadam Purusham. Purusha taught in the Upanishads, and Upanishads only. We have studied that portion earlier. Yes. Knowledge, bliss, and Brahman. Brahman, this jiva, this self, is Vijnanam, Anandam, Brahma. That was described in the previous part. It is of the nature of intelligence. Vijnanam, Anandam, bliss, and Brahman, infinite. Whatever is infinite is called Brahman. So this little self in me is not little at all. It is infinite, only we don't know it. We see it through the body medium. Then it is certainly limited, certainly small. This wrong attitude must be changed to understand what is our true nature. For that only all this investigation. The human being alone can do this investigation. The human being alone can detach the body from the self and say, I am the Atman, I am the self. Body is birth and death, not I. This only a human being can say. Many sages realize this truth. It has become current coin in India. In other countries, they have to struggle to understand this fact. To us, it is natural. We are the self, ever pure, infinite, it's our nature. But we are caught up in the body. We are limited. And death only means leaving the body. When Ramakrishna was sick of cancer, people came and asked, oh, you are not doing well, you are sick. Yeah, this pillowcase. This pillowcase is sick, he said. He considered the body as a pillowcase. Pillow and pillowcase. Pillowcase comes and goes, pillow remains. So this called body is a pillowcase, he said. And so, he continues here, knowledge, bliss and Brahman. This jiva, that is his nature. That same Brahman, which is immediate and direct, says, within all beings, taught with the mention of some particular ways of attaining it. Lastly, it has been stated that Vaishvanara, the self presiding over the waking state, the waking ego is called Vaishvanara. Last Sunday I referred to it. we gave a name to the various selves seen in the three states of waking, dream and sleep. It is universal experience. We don't need to go to a mystic, a special experience of the mystic. Everyday experience at a state of every human being. Here is the waking state. There is the self manifested there as the ego. We gave a name to it, Vaishvanara. Then we gave a name to the self as manifested in dream. It's not Vaishvanara that is manifested there. Our experience is quite different there. So, Taijasa name was given. And both these egos disappear in deep sleep. And yet the self is there. Because you remember you slept well. Unless the self is there, you cannot report. And therefore, we gave the name Prajna. So, Vaishvanara, Taijasa, Prajna. That is the three words that are used to designate this in the Mandukya Upanishad, particularly. So, Shankara refers to it. That also showed that that which is called Indha, that is Vaishvanara, takes fine food. Whatever food is eaten, the gross part of the food goes back as waste matter. The finer part of food becomes this self functioning in the waking state, body-mind complex. That energy, that food, takes finer food, and still more finer food is what makes for the deepest causal body of the human being. That is what you find manifest in deep sleep, causal body. Says, self-identified with the subtle body. That is the subtle body. This is gross body. That is Sukshma Sharira. This is Sthula Sharira. That is what you find in dream. That is what is consisting of the sensory energy, mind, intellect, all that constitutes the Sukshma Sharira of every human being. Then, limiting adjunct, by dissolving in the Supreme Self, through knowledge, even this self, identified with the universe, which is but a limiting adjunct, like a snake, for instance, in the rope. This is only a limiting adjunct, even the universe. My connection with the universe is a limitation. Connection with the body is a limitation. Connection with the universe also is a limitation. So when you transcend this limitation, you come to your own true state of being. This self is that which has been described as not this, not this, not this. That text he is quoting here. Neti neti iti atma. The Atman is neti neti. None of this, none of this. No specification, no limitation, no definition. It is beyond all this, said. Thus did Yajnavalkya set Janaka beyond fear by a brief reference to scriptural evidence. You have become fearless, Janaka. Abhayam vai praptosi Janaka, he had said earlier. This subject, when you realize, you become fearless. Fear is a characteristic of every living being. Only dead beings have no fear. No rocks have no fear. But every living being, from the cell up to man, there is fear. An integral part of the system. But one state in which you destroy all fear is when you realize Brahman, the infinite one, the one without a second. Yajnavalkya blessed Janaka by saying, Abhayam vai praptosi Janaka. You have achieved fearlessness. God realization is realization of fearlessness. That is the truth, again and again emphasized in Vedantic literature. Bhaya, Abhaya, these are the two words. Even in the Gita, among the moral and spiritual characteristics of a devotee, the first item is Abhayam. Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhi. You are walking on the path to God. That state is fearlessness. Now you don't start being fearless. That's how a devotee becomes a devotee. Starting with fearlessness, Abhayam. Here, in this particular section, in a different connection, the states of wakefulness, dream, profound sleep, and transcendence have been introduced in the words Indha as finer food. That statement earlier we studied. That is just the beginning of a tremendous subject dealing with the three states. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Indha is Vaishwanara. We just studied a bit of this waking state self. And to most people, waking state alone is worthwhile. Waking things only alone are worthwhile. To most people, not for a thinking person. For a thinking person, other states also are valuable. That's why we studied all the three states. If you want to deepen your experience of life, you must take other states also. On waking state alone, you can make only very shallow philosophy. Any philosophy based upon the waking state is always shallow. Any philosophy based on life only is shallow. You must study life and death. Unless death is studied, thought doesn't get depth. You can study any thought in the world. Wherever there is only the study of life, it's a very shallow philosophy. When you add death also as a subject of study, try to understand what it means, then you get depth to that philosophy. So here, the second and third states of being also have to be studied. We began just introducing earlier Vaishwanara, the waking state, and the self that is there. Yeah. The different vital forces. This self is that which has been described as not this, not this. Now Brahman is to be studied at length. Through these very states of wakefulness, dream and sleep, without any reference to any scripture. Till now we have referred to scripture. Some sages experience. Now we shall remove that dependence through rational inquiry into experience itself. We shall try to discover that self that shines through all the three states. That will be a tremendous contribution. This is called avasthatraya, three avasthas. The study of reality through examining the three states. It's a universal proposition. People in America, Russia, China, anywhere you can do. It's not any special thing. So that is what the Upanishad did. Avasthatraya prakriya. Prakriya means methodology. The methodology of the three states. Experience life, investigate what that experience means. It's not exactly what you think it means. When you go deeper, it reveals many new aspects. Therefore, he says, Brahman has to be studied at length through those very states of wakefulness with the help of valid reasoning. That is Shankara's way of putting it. Up to now, in this Brihadaranyaka, we did have some reason, but we were more concerned with what the Upanishads say. Based upon the Upanishads, we were trying to discuss the subject. What is Upanishad? Experience of sages. Valid experiences they are. They are good as a basis for you. And based on them you can reason and try to find out whether the truth is there. Today, many aspects of science will depend upon the statements of scientists. We can't examine them ourselves. A man has gone to the moon and reported. You have to take what he says. We have not gone to the moon. What do we do there? So also when you study the subatomic phenomena, not one of us have studied, but we accept. We treat them as honest people. We accept what they say. Yes, there is such a thing as subatomic phenomena. Similarly, in spiritual life, there is Brahman. This Atman is infinite. This experience of sages have been recorded in the Upanishad. They are called Shruti. The whole thing we call it Shruti. Very authoritative because it is based on experience, but experience which tells you, try to justify for yourself, realize for yourself. Don't simply believe in it. There is a language of the Upanishads. So Shruti is the basis. Next is Yukti. Yukti is reason. You have to put it upside down. Are you true? Are you true? Is this statement true? So Shruti followed by Yukti. Even that is not enough. There's a third item coming. That's called Anubhava, your own experience. So Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava, they always go together in Vedantic discussion. If all the three converge, then only you can definitely say, I am in touch with truth. Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava. In the Sutra Bhashya, Brahma Sutra Bhashya, Shankaracharya specially emphasizes these three: Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava. You hear something, that something has happened. You begin to argue about it, discuss about it. Is it true? Is it false? Take all the necessary evidences and then try to experience it for yourself. Because we are dealing with an inner reality. It's not an external reality. So you have to experience it yourself. Yes, I have the Atman. I am the Atman. This is infinite, ever pure. I have realized it. So Vedahamedam. I have realized it. I have realized it. That's a language. Final language. Before that, you listen to what somebody has to say. Shravana. In this very book, it was said, or it will be said, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Hearing, thinking about it, deep meditation, ultimately coming to experience of it. So Shankara says here that with the help of valid reasoning, we want to come to this truth of the Atman, of the principle of intelligence, one and non-dual. This is the truth. Can we get it by studying experience? How beautifully some of the Upanishads have said. Mahabharata also has repeated it. Like a housewife takes a pot of curd and goes on churning it and gets butter out of it, so also by churning life's experiences, we get the truth of the Atman, the truth of God. That churning is mentioned there. Manthan. Manthana means churning. What a beautiful expression. So here, Janaka is to be helped to attain Brahman. That is beyond fear. The existence of the self should be established by the removal of the doubts raised against it. Hundreds of doubts are there. Materialism gives you any number of questions. There is no such thing as a self. The body is enough. Body can explain everything. And body can be explained with the help of physics and chemistry. Because botany and zoology also are entirely based on physics and chemistry, according to materialists. So this difficulty is experienced today in a big way. You cannot argue with them. You have to show reason for reason. If they give reason, you must give other reason. This capacity to defend this spiritual life against the onslaught of materialism today cannot be achieved by any other literature except the Upanishads. You can see all over the world. They are all frightened by today's scientific advancement of this philosophy of materialism. Many scientists don't like this word materialism. We do deal with matter. We don't know what matter is. We can call it X. Nobody has seen matter. But for use, we just coin a term and call it matter. But to call it philosophy of materialism, strictly speaking, no scientist can accept materialism. But the world understands science means materialism. That's what you find all over. Thomas Huxley protested against it. Matter I can understand as a useful concept, like X, Y, Z. When you study mathematics, it's only for concept. Similarly, matter is a useful concept. But to produce a philosophy out of it, call it materialism, is to destroy the beauty of human life. I'm quoting exactly the words of Thomas Huxley, collaborator of Darwin. So here he says, we have to tell people, Vivekananda repeated it, you may say, I believe, but today's materialism will question your belief, make your mind shaken, your faith will be destroyed. Can you stand that reason with another reason? When you establish yourself on reason, then your faith will be steady. Otherwise, your faith will be constantly shaking. Today, how many people's faith has been shaken? But in Vedanta, we have got that tremendous instrument, reason, yukti. We depend on yukti. And so, in the Mandukya Upanishad Karika by Gaudapada, which I referred to last Sunday, where this subject of the three states has been studied thoroughly. In fact, the most authoritative book on the Avasthatraya is Mandukya Upanishad Karika by Gaudapada. What a wonderful man he was, living on the banks of the famous river Narmada. That Narmada river had produced many sages, Shankaracharya's guru was there. His guru was this Gaudapada. Shankara also went there. So many people doing meditation and study, etc., etc. That's why Narmada is very famous and holy in our tradition. Not only Ganges, but also Narmada. So in our southern state, Kaveri. How many sages, saints have been born on that Kaveri basin? So that's why we associate these rivers and mountains with holy people, those great saints and sages. That is our geography, that is our culture. So here, this Gaudapada, in his commentary, what they call the Mandukya Upanishad Karika. Karika means explanatory lessons on a particular subject. That's called Karika. So he took up this Upanishad, gave a literal meaning, then expounded it in 3 big chapters. First chapter based on the text. Second, third, fourth, entirely independent investigation. In that investigation, you get a beautiful sentence. The first sentence of the second chapter of the Karika. As I told you, the first chapter deals only with the text of the Upanishad, explaining the meaning. Now, in that text of the Upanishad, it was mentioned, Jnate Dvaitam na vidyate. When you realize the truth, you find there is no duality. Everything is one infinite self. In ignorance, you find all this diversity. Ramakrishna said, one. Knowledge of one is knowledge. Knowledge of the many is nothing but ignorance. Ramakrishna also said it. So in this text, this idea came. Jnate dvaitam na vidyate. Anadi. The shloka actually is this in the first chapter, called Agama Prakarana. A section based on Agama means the Vedas, the Shruti. That is the interpretation of the text based upon what Shruti has said about it. So Agama Prakarana. There it is said, Anadi Mayaya Yada Jiva Prabudhyate. When this Jiva, who is sleeping for ages in that sleep of Maya, when he wakes up from it, what does he see? Anati Mayaya Supto Yada Jiva Prabudhyate. He says, Brahman, that Advaitam Drishyate Tada. He realizes that infinite non-dual reality, always it was there, at all the time. Even though the universe was there, even then it was all Advaita Brahman, nothing else. That knowledge comes at that time. Anadi Mayaya Baddho, he says, Supto Yada Jiva Prabudhyate. Anindra Nidram Swapnam. Free from Nidra time. Anadi Mayaya Baddho, he says, Supto Yada Jiva Prabudhyate. Anindra Nidram Swapnam. Free from Nidra, waking, and Swapna. Advaitam, that non-duality, he realizes there. That is the statement. So, Jnate Dvaitam na vidyate. The Karika, second chapter, begins with this subject. Then he says, Agama matram hi tat. That is only a statement of the Shruti, of the Agama, or the Vedas. It's only a statement. But can you establish this non-duality and the unreality of duality on reasoning, on yukti? To show that, the second chapter is begun. The Agama matram hi tat. Yadi, he says, Vaidachyam prakashitum yuktya. Through yukti, can you establish this truth? That ultimately Advaita is true. All these diversities are not true. They are just on the way. The real truth is there. So, second chapter is begun for that purpose, says Mandukya Upanishad Karika. Here he also says the same thing. The existence of the self should be established by the removal of the doubts raised against it. And it should be known as being different from the body. The self different from the body. Ever pure. Self-effulgent. That's the nature of the self. Self-effulgent. Swayam Jyoti.